Hmm. I think we're going. I think we're live. I think we're doing it, but I can't remember why we're doing it. Can you?
Some about embryology.
Yeah. Yeah. Something about embryology. Okay. It was about Haeckel's drawings
Heckle.
and Haeckel. Some things that I recently run into. Well, not just recently. They've been going on about this for years.
Well, I got to say, the guy has a really cool beard. I like his beard.
He does have a cool beard. He is pretty awesome. Anyway, so God, there's a whole lot of stuff here. There's a tremendous amount of material. I was really surprised about Haeckel in general, and one of the things that really surprised me is how important he was in the 19th century. And I don't pay much attention to history and old scientists because I like to look at, like when I look at papers, I don't like to go, like I always pick 2020 and above or 2015 and above. I don't pay much attention to Darwin or history or Haeckel or anything.
Well,
But
history
I,
of science is very niche, so it's not surprising because
yeah,
you're not going to get a lot of interesting discussions going at parties and get-togethers dealing with science history. However, there is the science history that says, "Oh, that Heckle, he's a fake. He's fraud, fake news. He
yeah,
faked all his drawings, and he got put on trial, and he was convicted of fraud. So therefore, why pay attention to him?"
right. He was convicted. So Laborious Cretan we have a listener. Scott, we have a listener.
That's
We
amazing.
have some. Oh my God, there are four people watching, and I know I'm one of them. You're probably another, but
So
I
we've
think there's
got one
another.
unaccounted for.
Huh?
We've got one watcher unaccounted for because there's me, you, Laborious Cretan, and I don't know if having the YouTube stream, StreamYard is counts as a watcher.
No, it doesn't. He's a
Okay,
lurker. We have a lurker,
Laborious Lurker.
laborious lurker, and laborious cretin. I'm really happy about that. But anyway, so there's just so much. What have I been doing for months and months? We haven't done any videos because you know what? Usually, I just I watch these crazy creationists say they're crazy things, and then I go and I read about it, and I find out how fucking wrong they are. And then I'm like, okay, I'm happy. I'm gonna take a nap now. So it becomes sort of for me. It's been a very personal, internal journey, which I have not talked about, and I keep wanting to do a video and do more videos and talk about things. And I always have, I always imagine that I could do like good work, right? Like Dr. Dan does, and all the others. And oh my God, Joel Duff, he is just an excellent producer of material. But apparently I'm never going to be able to do that. So if I want to have a voice at all, we got to talk about this stuff because there's some shit going on here with this Haeckel drawings. These are the original Haeckel drawings, I guess. These are the problematic, fraudulent drawings that I'm showing on the screen. And geez, well,
So is
that's
this from a Discovery Institute or whatever they call themselves, or a AIG blog or something? It says
no. I
from
think this is
right
like
here.
this is a picture of the original Haeckel drawings. So like he did. What do we got here? Oh, I forget what they even are. I've got them listed at another spot, but like these drawings right here, there's something in embryology called the phylotypic stage, and it's been controversial for since Haeckel, right? That there's this one stage of development, like a lot of uh, a lot of developmental, a lot of zygotes start out dividing very differently, but then like birds and fish and mammals, and then at some stage they kind of like vertebrates somewhat share this phylotypic stage where they kind of look similar, and it's kind of weird, and it's sort of an hourglass shape, and then they start to differentiate, right? Well, Haeckel had a big thing called ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, which doesn't have a goddamn thing to do with evolution. Other than that, it was an idea he had that you can see evolution happening in every embryo, that you can see it from the beginning to the end. Growth stages, let's see, what do we go? How epigenetic and bio, oh my God. No, that's way beyond where we're going here, laborious Cretan. Bioelectric guiding growth and patterns. We could get into all that, but that's later. But anyway, so this phylotypic stage in this ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny was pretty much gone, I think, by the turn of the century, even before Haeckel even died. He died in 1919, and that's one thing. And the creationists like to. They're trying to say that ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny is proof for evolution. It's like, no, it had nothing to do with proof for evolution. It's just an interesting idea that people had, that he came up with, that he promoted, and I think he abandoned maybe later in life, because it's pretty obvious that, it's hard to support that. So how do we explain that? So ontogeny is the development of you, the organism. Ontogeny is what happened to you from the time you were a single cell until you became Scott and laborious Cretan and the lurker that we have out there. Oh no, lurker left. We only have 3 watching. Anyway, so, and phylogeny is, the evolutionary history of each species, everything that goes before us, right? So if you unpack that a little bit, every species, when we diverge from our common ancestor, right, we are going to be different. So at later stages of development, our ontogeny, we're going to differentiate either into a primate or a chick, right, a bird or a primate, right? But then the idea is that at some stage before that, when we had a common ancestor, that our embryos are going to be identical as we're developing. But no, that's not the case because genes, when they mutate, all of them mutate. So from the time the first cell divides, you're going to find differences from one species to the next. You're going to find some differences. And of course, between mice and humans, there's less differences than there is between birds and humans, or between, I don't know, snakes, peas, like the pea plant. So, I mean, this whole thing is just a bunch of rhetoric that creationists have come up with. And when you look into the details, you're going to find a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You're going to find a whole bunch of different stuff. Now, these are actual drawings right here. Okay, right there. This is the Xenopus, which is a frog, a zebrafish, which shows the yolk sac. And then these don't show maybe they do. Chick, mouse, human, right? And here's Haeckel's drawings down here. Now here's what happened. Okay, Haeckel did probably tens of thousands of illustrations, and he wrote 140 books during his 85 years of life. His last book was published 2 years before he died in, I think, 1917, and he died in 1919 or something like that. Anyway, so he did thousands of drawings. And excuse me a second here. Hang on. Furball. Anyway, so he did these drawings to promote his ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny idea, and that's cool. He was pretty much wrong about most of that. And one of the things he did.
May I interject a question here real quick?
Go ahead.
The quote unquote drawing in this chart here.
Yeah.
The like the third item there on the bottom. What what drew that, and what did they draw it with? Because my impression is that Haeckel had only hand drawings and eyeballs, maybe with a microscope, through a microscope,
I
but
guess so. Yeah.
eyeball it and then use whatever pencil or charcoal or whatever they used to make these drawings. What was
Yeah.
used to view, and then what was used to draw with the items in the chart?
Yeah. I guess they had, magnifying glasses and they had a pencil and they drew them with a pencil.
Yeah, because
Hey,
if you're gonna look at these and go, well, they don't look the same. Well, of course, because the instrumentation we have to deal with it, the media with which we have to draw, we have all sorts of software for drawing shit now.
yeah.
And I'm sorry for the interjection of the curse word, but we just it's just kind of silly for them to go, they don't look the same, because they look close enough given the constraints that
Right.
Haeckel was working under.
Yeah. So these things here are basically Haeckel. So Haeckel had drawings, and then when they actually turned them into books, they had to create wood carvings, I think, of some kind in order to print the ink.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And Haeckel had quickly, okay, he was called on this by a number of people. Now, for one thing, Haeckel, a lot of people were pissed off at him. A lot of religious people were already pissed off at Haeckel and Darwin at that point. And they pushed back and they said, oh, these are fake, and all that shit. And Haeckel said, yeah, I took some license, some artistic license. For one thing, he left out the yolk sacs on all of these to make them so you could just see the structure of the embryo.
Right.
And for another thing, he kind of out here, he used the same drawings and just sort of like eyeballed them and made them a little bit different. He also changed the size of these embryos so that they were all looked to be the same size, even though they aren't at that stage. And that's what he came up with, right? But now here's the actual drawing. So look at the actual drawings. And what we're going to see now, these two seem to have a very prominent yolk sac, the zebrafish. I mean, lo and behold, a frog is different than a mammal or a human. Yeah, mammals.
So, are those actual drawings, or are those like
These?
photos? Or
These are drawings that are done in modern times for a more modern book on embryology.
Right.
That's where I got these, right? So now there are actually more differences when you go back in time to the egg phase, particularly between like Xenopus and zebrafish and we have mammals over here.
Is that because the pathways taken to get to the end stage are different?
Yeah, there are at that single-celled stage when it starts dividing. There's a lot of differences between different organisms. Okay, not so much for mammals. They're pretty, rabbit and human and calf are going to be pretty similar, and hog. And you can kind of see that. So we've got up here, we got mouse and human. That's the only examples we have of mammals, and this is what they look like. And there's differences because guess what? Mice aren't humans. We're different species, right? So there are going to be differences in the embryonic development. I'm sorry.
It's just such a that a century from now, like this is 2026 and 2126, you're going to still have creationist Bible bros still trying to disprove people like Dr. Dan and other scientists.
Yeah, based on something that happened in the 1800s, 19th century, or whatever. And then, okay. Now, the thing I found out about Haeckel that I didn't know, because I don't really give a shit about Darwin and Haeckel and history particularly, but I probably should pay more attention to it, is that here's the words and concepts that he created during his life. Metazoa, which means all the animals. Ecology, for Christ's sake, he invented that word. Protista, Monera is a little controversial. He invented the word Caucasian,
That's interesting.
probably because he was a little bit racist, maybe. But I mean, we got to have a way to talk about differences between people too, don't we? And then gastrula and blastula, which we use in embryology, and he invented the word stem cell. And then gastria theory, I don't know much about that. Recapitulation theory was sort of his ontogeny, recapitulates. He came up with separate function of the nucleus and the cytoplasm, and he came up with hundreds of other things. He wrote 140 books. So, I mean, he came up with a lot of stuff, and it's pretty interesting. Okay. So, basically, he helped popularize Darwinism in Germany and Europe. And I've got a book I can show you here in a minute that talks about the real history of Haeckel. He coined or popularized major biological terms, which I just showed. He described thousands of marine organisms. Like he wrote just all these diatoms and a whole bunch of other stuff. He had these wonderful drawings. He was a hell of an artist and prolific. He made evolutionary trees central to biology, which, he had a little problems with some of the trees, but anyway, let's see. And he linked comparative embryology with evolution. And so he was the first one that kind of came up with the roots of Evo-Devo, which has become a big thing in just this century, right?
Yeah, I did a quick inquiry on Gemini about the place of ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, and it did mention that now, rather than what Haeckel, his little framework, we follow Evo-Devo now. And it provided a chart, although I should have kept it, but I clicked out of it. It provided a chart kind of comparing the differences between Haeckel's proposals and the modern Evo-Devo, how it views things. So there are differences. It's the field has developed and gone on past Haeckel, but to call him a fraud, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I started to tell that story. So there was some pushback from some of his colleagues, and that happened in newspaper articles. And it was in the London Times. So they had this controversy going on where people were shouting fraud at Haeckel, and Haeckel responded facetiously, kind of that, oh yeah, I admit it. I did take some artistic license, and you can call it. He said he used a German word that could mean fraud or could mean falsified, and he admitted it, and then in the third, fourth, and fifth editions of his book, the fifth edition I think came out in 1905. He corrected those drawings, and I have not been able to find a corrected version of those drawings. So he basically took the criticism, admitted something was wrong, and but there was a big kerfuffle in the paper because there was a whole lot of hating going on of this naturalist crowd that were kind of going against the fundamentalist religious crowd. So even back then, we had the creationists fighting with the scientists, right? That sort of thing. So anyway, that's all it was a newspaper controversy, and then we come up with a whole bunch of garbage. Like probably the biggest piece of garbage is this one right here. Let's see here. Can I do that? Yeah, I can do that. Or James deeply. Okay, James. I'm hoping this works. Just go and work. Let's go and work. Yep. Okay. So we'll try this. Do I have the right part here? Yeah, I do. Okay.
Development, the textbook says. What do they mean? The similarity between early stages in development of many different animals helped convince Darwin that all forms of life shared common ancestor. Ernst Haeckel drew the drawings, and they are fake, and he admitted it on trial with his other professors, okay? Darwin considered this.
Okay. So he's got it ass backwards, number one. Haeckel was a Darwin fan. Darwin later became a Haeckel fan after he found out about the kid, you know, because he was younger. Haeckel did not, as he implied, provide evidence for Darwin's theory. Darwin did that when he was on the Beagle doing his drawings, right? He wrote a whole fucking book about it, you know? So he's got that backwards. Now, the other thing he said, now, if you notice, he said when he was on trial at the university, they're talking about, I forget what the university is. There never was a trial at a university, ever. Haeckel worked at a university, I think, for all of his life. He was never thrown out of the university. He was never brought up on charges of fraud at the university. And you'll hear the creationists distort this story over and over and over again. And it all came from some early, some engineer back in like 1970, 80 or whatever, actually said that he was on trial, and that everybody else just copied that quote, and they invented this entire fiction. So, but here's the kicker, Scott. Now, here's what's interesting. Okay, they're claiming that Haeckel lied and committed fraud. And they're doing exactly the same thing today. They're lying and committing fraud. I mean, they're lying about that trial. It never happened. There's no evidence that a trial of any kind ever happened. But yet they're lying about it. So they're doing exactly what they're accusing Haeckel of doing now, today, in modern times. That is ironic, isn't it?
Extremely ironic.
Yeah. It's like, you lying piece of crap. I mean, it's just like, and they keep doing it. Let's see here. Does that work? What is X? What does X do? Oh, X does that. Cool. Okay.
Does X mark the spot?
XX marks the spot. Ernst Haeckel. Oh, let's see here. Yeah. Ernst Haeckel, evolutionary huckster, they're calling him. The evolutionary huckster. Oh my goodness.
I think from now on, my response is always going to be creationists just don't know their crap. They're liars. You just need to do your own research.
Yeah, you do. You need to go
research.
Yeah.
And if it's a creationist website or publication, it's not a source.
Yeah. See what this guy says here. I'm not sure what I have queued up.
And so that's and when I picked up textbooks, so I found.
Here we go. Okay. Now this guy is talking about going to high school in 1975 or something like that. And he had a textbook written by Keaton for biology that was published in 1972. So he's talking about that.
My high school textbook that I used in 1975.
You still have it.
Before you were born.
Yeah.
And this is what it said. That when you're looking at the ontology, this development of these embryos through time, it's actually a little mirror, or it's a picture into the past, a window into the past, probably a better way of phrasing it, a window in the past of looking at the evolutionary development over all of these things.
Okay.
And so that's, and when I picked up textbooks, so I found my high school textbook that I used in 1975.
You still have it.
Before you were born.
Yeah.
And this is what it said. This was from 1972, Keaton, in 1972. It says, for example, on these points that I was talking about here, for example, the early human embryo has a well-developed tail and a series of gill pouches in the pharyngeal region. And then to the other point that I was making, it says, human and fish embryos resemble each other because human beings and fish share a common remote ancestry.
Mm.
So right there in the text, and as you can imagine, me seeing this for the first time And I went on to do more science, but many high school students, this is the only time they'll ever see this.
Right.
First and only time
Who
that you
is
see
this guy,
this.
and did he really go on to do more science?
What's that? This guy?
Yeah, who's that guy, and did he really go on to do more science?
Not much. He's a let's see, he is the president of ICR, I think. His name is
Still waiting for the part where he does more science.
no, he didn't do any more science. I think he has let's say an engineering degree. He has a bachelor's in science. And Randy Galuza or something like that is his name. I have a little biography on him somewhere that we could get into at some point. But anyway, that's what he had to say about that. And I have, let me see if I can find it. I found that textbook. Where is that textbook? Elements. Okay, Keaton. Okay. Oh, better yet, I found that textbook and I have a picture of the pertinent pages. And I was shocked when I saw this because I can show you, but those aren't Haeckel's illustrations up there that they show in his textbook. So if he remembers Haeckel's illustrations, these are illustrations from G.J. Romanes, who was a friend of Darwin's, who, basically drew something else, and it had nothing to do with Haeckel. But anyway, so this textbook says, for example, just like he quoted, okay, the early human embryo has well-developed tail and also a series of gill pouches, which are badly named in the pharyngeal region, okay? So they call them pharyngeal pouches or pharyngeal notches or whatever. But humans actually do have that, and humans also have a pretty significant little piece of tail in the embryo at an early stage. So this book is saying nothing that's false about embryology. And he implied that that was all false, that was all based on Haeckel's drawings. No, today we know that human embryos have those little notches in fish. Those little pouches develop into gills. In humans, those little pouches develop in mammals into jaw bones and ear bones and various features on your skull, right? So, I mean, nobody is saying anything wrong here. But what he didn't show is this part here. The modern view is that Haeckel's idea was an oversimplification. Ontogeny does not repeat phylogeny in any strict or literal sense. An individual's developmental stages do not correspond to its successive adult ancestors. So right here, isn't this ironic also? He's pointing to his high school textbook, and his memory is that it was promoting Haeckel's idea of ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. And right here in the goddamn textbook that he supposedly studied in high school, it tells you that, no, that was wrong. So right here it says Haeckel was wrong. So what is he complaining about?
So in other words, you're saying that when a creationist reads a quote, you probably need to go find the original quote yourself.
Yeah, and you need to read the next paragraph. The next fucking paragraph.
Creationists are not reliable sources. They are not good faith interlocutors. They're propagandists.
Yeah. So here's the drawings that were actually in that that thing, and they show the pharyngeal pouches, these things right here. Every vertebrate has them. Every vertebrate has this. This is the actual vertebra. Every vertebrate has a tail. Humans too, and the human's tail kind of like recedes and disappears. And you get into the details of how that happens, but of course, we know that chimpanzees and humans don't have a tail. There you go. And here's the parts about Haeckel. The only thing they mentioned, I think they start here with Haeckel, talking about Haeckel. and his principle of recapitulation is what they call it. And they say, nope, that's not real. And then they go on and, it's a high school biology text. It's not rocket science, not meant to be. So not a big deal. Now, I found a book. Found another book. There are so many books. Oh my goodness. Richardson, no highly conserved. Oh, okay. Oh my goodness. The Richardson papers are coming up. Richardson wrote a paper in 1997 where he took like 36 different species, and he
Who's Richardson?
Richardson is a decent embryologist who wrote a lot of stuff on embryology, and he picked this up in 1997, and he came up with this, basically pushing back against Haeckel and ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, which I want to remind you again is not evolution, is not evidence for evolution, and has nothing to do with evolution today. But he came up with this, and he basically said that, holy shit, this Haeckel guy, he committed this horrible fraud back in the day and all that stuff. And he went on, and then he did a bunch of embryos himself. Let's see, these are Haeckel's drawings. I guess these are the actual drawings by Haeckel. So this is probably a better one. So you can see where he took some license here with the, what is that? I don't even know. Not sure. I can't. They're written in German. So.
You mean you didn't bother to learn German while you were in the bathroom or something like that?
I was working on Scott, but I just didn't have time. So he went through and he did, all these different things and talked about, who has a tail bud and who doesn't. And he came up with a whole lot of information. But this other guy, who's the other guy? Let me see. Elements of Biological Science, Keaton. Oh, come on. Give me a break. Okay. This guy has a book. Let's see, for my students. Who is he? Who's this book? Okay. The Tragic Sense of Life. Basically, it's Robert J. Richards. Now, Robert J. Richards wrote a paper called There Was No Fraud, basically. Let's see, Richardson's. Okay, let me go to Richard. Haeckel's Embryos, Fraud Not Proven. That's the name of that paper. And we could take a look at that paper, but I'm going to have to resize it. We'll go back to this. Okay, he also wrote a book. He was now Richards, not to be confused with Richardson, was a philosopher of science, history of science, right? So he was a historian of science, and he wrote a really good book on this whole goddamn controversy. And he talks about Haeckel's real life, and he goes through a whole bunch of interesting. I mean, if you really want a history of what happened in the 19th century, you want to take a look at this, because he goes through all these people. Ernst Haeckel with his parents. These are illustrations. I'm sorry. Where's the contents? Oh, contents. Okay. Here, that's a list of illustrations again. Where's the contents? Come on, dude. What is this? Illustrations. I'm trying to get to the contents. Jeez, it's not easy. I can't find the contents. Oh, here we go. This is the contents. The tragic source of anti-religious character of evolutionary theory. Formation of a romantic biologist. Talks about, just the history of thought back in, when naturalism was colliding with religious ideas in the Enlightenment, and particularly in the 19th century, there was a whole lot of tragedy. Triumph and Tragedy at Jena. Jena is the university that Haeckel taught at. And if you look into the history of Haeckel, you'll find that he was there his entire life. There was no trial. There was no fraud charges at the university. He was a professor there, I think, until he died. So For Love of Anna, I'm not sure what that's about. He must have had a girl involved. But this is a good book on his life and history, right? And then he basically wrote letters to Darwin. Darwin noticed them and said, "Oh my God, your illustrations on marine biology are excellent. I want to meet you." And they met, and they were like mutual fans, I guess, until Darwin died. So anyway, religious response. So we had a whole lot of pushback, and a lot of people that were trying to make him look like an asshole. And then we have, let's see, there were some controversies where he got involved in. I think they listed him as the like one of the early promoters of eugenics, but I haven't found any proof of that at all. I'm guessing, he was a fucking racist like all of them were back then at that time. And I don't know. But anyway, he's got appendixes, and this is a really good book. So if anybody wants to know what really happened and get the real story, go and look at this, The Tragic Sense of Life. Ernst Haeckel and the Struggle Over Evolutionary Thought. I think it's pretty significant. So, and if we go look at his paper, let me get the paper up. Oh, let's see. It's unfortunate that you can see my screen here, I think. I don't think that will help anybody. Automatically resize. Yeah, we gotta move this over. Okay. So now we gotta go to the top.
Laborious Cretan appreciates you showing that book.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Look it up, and you can find copies of it in various places, I think. And let's see. Okay, Haeckel's embryo. So he wrote this in 2009. Richards did, and he is the historian of science. Richardson is an embryologist that, somebody managed to fire him up about Haeckel's drawings, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is a fraud."
Now, you just said Richardson. Do you mean Richards or Richardson?
Richardson's was the embryologist who wrote the paper in 1997 that creationists love to quote. Okay. Richards, Stephen Jay Gould looked at that paper and he said, "Oh my God, this is horrible. Haeckel's a fraud." So you got all these quotes about people talking about, embryologists talking about Haeckel being a fraud. And then Richards came along and said, "Wait a minute, let's put some brakes on this." And he goes through and talks about Haeckel and what happened. This is a paper called, here you go, Haeckel's Embryos, Fraud Not Proven. You can look that up. And then, of course, we have the book by the same man that I just listed.
The DOI number is on that first page as well.
Yep.
For those of you,
and I'll try to
paper.
I'll put these two things in my description. Through the first half of the 19th century and first part of the 20th, no scientist more vigorously defended Darwinian theory than Ernst Haeckel. More people learned of the new ideas through his voluminous publications, 140 books, translated into numerous languages, than through any other source, including Darwin's own writings. So Haeckel was really powerful in promoting Darwin. Now, these guys imply that Darwin used Haeckel's embryos as evidence. And no, that didn't happen. Darwin saw those drawings and said, wow, that's something, but no, that didn't have anything to do with Darwin writing the book. They claim that Haeckel was a Darwinist. I wonder if they would claim that Darwin was a Haeckelist, because that's kind of what they're implying.
Yeah,
Darwin was a Haeckelist, and yeah.
I saw a couple of quotes when I was doing that a couple of Gemini searches, and yeah, he definitely sounds like he was a Haeckelian,
Yeah.
Haeckelist.
Yeah, I don't know. Haeckel was he believed in monism. He believed that God was present in all natural things. That there was only, there's only one thing in the universe, and that is the natural world. But the natural world is proceeding in a godlike manner and creating things, which is kind of whole interesting philosophy that's not entirely wrong, basically. I mean, you can I call nature God myself. So, okay, in a Science magazine article published in 1997, Haeckel's embryos fraud rediscovered. Now we're talking about Richardson. God, it is unfortunate that they have that name. The article reported that the work of Michael Richardson and his colleagues demonstrated this malfeasance through a comparison of Haeckel's illustrations in early stage embryos. Well, this guy gets into it in a little more detail, and he says, wait a minute, Richardson kind of made some little artistic leaps himself, right? In that Haeckel had taken out the yolks, but Richardson left them in. The yolks make them look more different, and he goes on and quotes a whole bunch of stuff here. So, firm the charge. It looks like it's turning out to be one of the most famous fakes in biology.
So, what's the big fuss over taking out the yolks? Seems like the yolks, which is just the nutritional media, and which they seem to be growing in. It just seems like that would get in the way of things. That if by taking out the yolks, you can see things better.
Yeah, you can see things better, and that's what Haeckel did, and that's what Richardson didn't do. The yolks, like in very early embryos, like between fish and reptiles and mammals, the yolk has a very, very different shape and representation. Like very early on, the yolk takes on a different form. There's all these words like isolecithal and teleolecithal and different versions of how a yolk works in an embryo. And that happens at the very early division stages, within the first week of the zygote dividing, that the yolk becomes vastly different in these different lineages. So they're not the same. But if you take out the yolk, what's left is this little tripoblastic, that means 3 layers of cells, disc that looks pretty similar throughout the first few weeks of development. But the yolk is going to look very different anyway. So let's see, embryonic layer, Hawks, and he goes through and Stephen Jay Gould picks it up and says, oh my God, Haeckel's an asshole. And everybody's like getting on Haeckel, and the creationists are just sucking up the quotes. Although, even though it had nothing to do with Darwin and evolution, it doesn't fucking matter.
So Haeckel hatred was a fad for a while.
What's that?
I said Haeckel hatred was a fad for a while.
Yeah, it's called Haeckel hatreditis. It's a disease that people get. Haeckel derangement syndrome.
Do you become a creationist when you come down with Haeckel hatred, or is that something only creationists come up with?
No, actually, there's some scientists that started hating Haeckel after Richardson's paper in 1997. So laborious cretin, take a look at that book by Richards. If you go pick that book up, I would love to have somebody read that book and come on and talk about it, because that has the whole history of this whole evolution thing. In fact, everything about the 19th century threatened a lot of religious fundamentalists, and there were a lot of fights going on back then that we aren't entirely aware of today that we should learn about. The main point of the article by Richardson and his colleagues, however, was to show that embryologists in the late 20th century did a little better. The authors, the other thing that they don't mention about Richardson is he didn't just pick on Haeckel. He picked on all the embryologists back then. They all had limited tools, limited information, and they said a lot of things they probably, like they said what their best knowledge told them to say. They did the best they could with what they had, is what it amounts to. So anyway, the book grew out of a series of lectures. Let's see, where do we go? This is, okay, he goes ahead and he talks about the history. This paper will give you a more of a thumbnail view of the whole thing. Okay, Haeckel's lectures were meant for a popular audience, and thus some didactic license would have been permitted. Second, Haeckel was a marine biologist, not a vertebrate biologist, though he was highly skilled in that latter field anyway. He borrowed and adapted many of his illustrations with acknowledgement from experts in vertebrate biology. From our perspective, these images are a bit crude. If one compares Haeckel's images of embryos at the intermediate stages with those used by Darwin in Descent of Man, one can appreciate the schematic character of the images typical of the time. They had shitty illustrations. Go figure. They had they didn't have computers to create PDFs and send them to the printer. Darwin acknowledged he borrowed his images from two of the same sources as did Haeckel. Darwin also attempted to drive home some similarities of vertebrate embryos. I will too. I will defend ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny in some small eccentric way, even though it's not popular today. But if you start studying embryology, you see commonality between developing organisms everywhere. Same genes used over and over again. It's amazing. Anyway, Haeckel quite explicitly stated in the caption to his illustration that he reduced all images to the same size. So he already told you that he was making, here's the original images. Okay. Richardson and his colleagues selected images from the first edition of Haeckel's Anthropogeny, which was hastily drawn together from his lectures. The book, though, went through 5 further editions. With each new edition, the text grew fatter as Haeckel deployed more evidence, and the illustration in question was expanded, the comparison from 8 species of embryo to 20 in the 5th edition. In subsequent editions, the images grew ever more refined. So he saw, he did the best he could with what he had. So he took his lectures, wrote a first edition of a book, and over the course of his life, refined that book 5 times and did a lot better. So the most dubious aspect of the case against him, several but not all of the photographed embryos retain the attached yolk sac and other maternal material. This exaggerates their differences from Haeckel's images. He's talking about Richardson's paper now.
So Richardson, for whatever reason, basically created an apples and oranges comparison in some cases.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Yeah, just to make it, clearer in his paper. Richardson, it wasn't a bad paper. He was complaining about something that, we certainly should fix in our textbooks and make sure that we're not putting out garbage,
Now, do the creationists that you've looked at and encountered, do they cite Richardson? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Richardson is their favorite. He's their guy.
So when they cite Richardson, and you may have pointed this out, I'm just trying to recapitulate. Are they misinterpreting Richardson?
A little bit, yeah, because Richardson wasn't just picking on Haeckel; he was picking on a lot of embryologists from the 19th century, others, and he was also picking on the fact that some of the textbooks are still reprinting some of that garbage, stuff that we should have rejected a long time ago.
But I did a quick overview here just a few minutes ago, And they did have photographic equipment available, but you would need an entire room size setup, and it would take a long time for exposures, because you would have to let it sit and let light, come in and hit the film that they were using. And during that time, it was easy for the embryos to degrade. So there's a reason why drawings were chosen over photographic equipment, especially if you did not have the capital and the technical training to use it. So.
Yeah. So he took some actual photographs and he used the computer to remove the yolk sac, and he came up with these top illustrations. And then here's Haeckel's on the bottom, and he's just showing that, as near as he could, that Haeckel's illustrations aren't that far off. They're just a little exaggerated. I'm sorry, but the pouches are there, the tail is there, the vertebrae are there in all of these vertebrates. And we can't deny that. We can look at, I've got a whole bunch of books on modern embryology, and I'm telling you, you can see the similarities in all of these things. Now, he used the same woodcut 3 times to represent the initial formation of embryos of dog, chicken, and turtle. When a reviewer noticed this, Rottmeyer, in 1868, Haeckel defended himself by arguing you could not tell the differences among these vertebrates at this very early stage. And given the instrumentation at the time, this was true. He nonetheless recognized that he egregiously erred and immediately corrected the text in the next edition 2 years later. So as soon as they called him on it, he fixed it. Go figure. Anyway, there's another interesting paper for us right there. What else we got? Let me see here. Oh, let's see. Haeckel served as Ernst Haeckel did face significant criticism and controversy at the time. His academic tenure at Jena University continued professorship. He served as professor of zoology at the University of Jena for many years. He began in 1862 and remained until 1909. He died 10 years later at 85. So he was there so there was no trial. There was no fraud. He was not kicked out of the university. Every time creationists say that, when they're talking about fraud and liars, they are frauds and liars. So, I mean, if they are complaining about frauds and lies, they should look first at their own self. What is that biblical passage? Look first at or something about a straw or something, or what the hell is it?
That's the mote and the log in your eye. At least that's the King James words used for it. Yeah, don't judge the person for the mote in their eye when you have a log, just stuck in your eye. And
right.
First, get rid of the log, then you can maybe worry about somebody else's moat.
Yep. So, no formal trial. He was accused of scientific misconduct by some of his contemporaries. These accusations did not lead to any formal legal trials. The disputes were largely confined to academic and scientific circles and the London Times. Public debates, I added that part because I know that part. Criticisms often resulted in public debates and written exchanges in scientific journals rather than courtroom battles, just like what we got going on today between people when they're talking about, the detailed phylogeny of toads or something. They're still fighting. That's how science works. People disagree with each other. The claims that Haeckel was tried or expelled may stem from misunderstandings or exaggerations of historical events. Some sources, particularly those critical of evolutionary theory, have amplified the controversy surrounding his work. I found, there's some guy, he was an engineer back in late 20th century, and he basically started talking about there being a trial, and he was lying through his teeth. And the creationists have been repeating the lie ever since. Because, you know what? Creationists are frauds and liars. That might be a little harsh. Am I being harsh? I don't know. Okay. Despite controversies, Haeckel remained a prominent figure in biology and continued to contribute to science. Influence on his ideas, though flawed in some respects, played a role in advancing studies of the evolutionary relationships and developmental biology. So he was like the father of Evo Devo. It's just that, at the time things weren't that good.
So, what scientist in a relatively new and ongoing field is not going to have flaws?
Right. I could link this ChatGPT. It's got a lot of information. What about the rebuttal of Richardson by Robert Richards? Okay, that's what we were just talking about. So we just went through all that. And what else? What else I got going on here? I asked it to do biogenetic law. That's what he called his ontogeny recapitulates, I think. Yeah, that's the biogenetic law. Controversy. Accusations of falsification. Where are they at? Haeckel's defense. Okay, let's see. Where's he mentioned the London Times? I don't know. Anyway. Okay, let's see. Bruce Gardner, creationism. Let's see. Oh, there's so much more. We got to talk more. There's this whole bullshit thing over phylogeny and evolution, and I want to talk to creationists about the ark and a whole bunch of other stuff. But anyway, we've gone on for an hour. I produced a lot of information. I promise by tomorrow morning, I'm going to get as much of this into my description as possible, including I'm going to try links to ChatGPT. I don't know if those will stick over time, but I've got a lot of chats over this stuff. So anyway, there's something else. Okay, Haeckel and a guy named Metchnikoff, they had a disagreement over gastrulation and how it happened in embryos. And it turns out both of them were kind of right. And this happened this is, modern embryology still uses the ideas from both of those men to talk about gastrulation in embryos.
So it's like the blind man and the elephant analogy, where maybe somebody was concentrating on the trunk and somebody else was concentrating on the tail, and didn't realize that they were actually being right about different aspects of the same thing.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and what amazed me, I'm always saying I don't give a shit about Darwin, I don't give a shit about Haeckel, I don't give a shit about the 19th century. But when I started reading about Haeckel, he's even more important than Darwin when it comes to embryology. I mean, he had a lot of things that we're still using today. So here you are, Christians maligning this man who lived for 85 years, wrote 140 books, taught at a university for his entire life. They're maligning a thinker from the 19th century who was as exceptional as Einstein in the field of biology. Yes, let's see. You may want to put the G. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Let's see. Wait a minute. Chat's dome place to link to? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Otherwise, they will die broken link in time. Oh, some place to link to. Yeah, okay, I could do that. I could try that. I'm not sure if I can. I'll do my best. Okay, so anyway, so that was amazing. I found out more. The more I find out about Haeckel, the more respect I have for the man. And like God, for them to lie about somebody who's long dead, to lie about a person that's dead and can't defend himself, and accuse him of fraud, I think that's unchristian. What do you think? Is that an unchristian thing to do?
Oh yeah, it's unchristian, and also, what they're doing is they're saying all this stuff to people who basically live in a silo. They silo their source of information. So rather than papers and actual books by actual scholars and scientists in the field, they listen to podcasts and broadcasts by creationists who repeat the same lies, and then they can go out and repeat the same lie, and maybe in sincerity think that they're saying correct information, but they're not. And then basically, if it doesn't come from a Christian source, they don't trust it. So
Right.
so that, keep all these lies in the Christian community, and the Christian community will be believing and repeating lies.
Yeah. Oh, and here's another thing. There is no verified 1875 Jenner trial. Nothing.
Yeah.
And I found that years ago when they first mentioned this. I looked it up. It's like, oh, I want to see the transcript of that trial, or I want to see historical information. Couldn't find a thing. Didn't exist. They fucking made it up. Like, they talk about the newspaper article here. Yeah, if I put all of this ChatGPT into a PDF, maybe I can share it in my Google Drive, as long as I'm alive. But then when I'm not alive anymore, they're going to quit paying for my Google Drive. I don't know what will happen. But I don't know how to share information forever on the internet, but I could try. WordPress? Yeah, I could have. So, anyway, who's going to pay for all that? I don't know. Anyway, so we got a whole bunch of stuff. We did a whole bunch of stuff, and I just want to say that at the end of this, I am really impressed with Haeckel. I mean, it had the exact opposite effect that it was supposed to have. I think the man is really worth paying attention to. What do we got here? Okay, is that command? Okay, that's all I got today. Yeah, I want to. I think the next thing I want to talk about is this whole cat and dog kind. I really want to talk to the Christians about the cat and dog kind, because everything I read about this, I mean, the cat and the dog kind hopped off the ark, 4 individuals, male and female of each kind, and they became all the different cat kinds and all the different dog kinds. And in that process, everything that I believe about evolution is in right there. And they seem to accept the same thing that I do. So they believe in evolution the same way I do. So what is the problem? I don't get what the problem is. Anyway. Oh, we can still hear you thump, but it's not as bad as it used to be, Scott. But
yeah, that's because I'm using a Bluetooth keyboard that's just a little bit away from my computer, which is the one that you always hear me typing on, or used to, or whatever. But yeah, I'm disappointed that y'all can still hear it. But I apparently there was a civil libel and slander case between Haeckel and a former student and assistant named Otto Heyman.
Really?
It didn't have anything to do with his illustrations, but it was a court case. And so somebody was using that as a way of saying, oh, see, he was put on trial for fraud, when this was just like a civil case.
Okay. So who was, can you put that in chat? Something about that in chat so that I have it?
Yeah, let me find the link to. No, I'm not going to do that. I'll just hold on.
And we're going to end because we're way over the 10 minutes that I wanted this to be. Too much info to do in 10 minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to put it in the live chat.
Okay.
And will the private chat keep?
No, it won't. Okay. So let me copy that, and I will try to put that in the description also. So why can't I copy this? Okay, there we go. Alt-C. Okay, cool. Got it. I'll put it in my ChatGPT.
If you just do a little research, you can really learn a lot. And the fact that all they're doing is repeating the same incorrect information over and over and over lets you realize that people aren't doing or they're only using the Christian AI search bot or something. I bet there's a Christian one out there that's safe for the family and for your Christian testimony and your soul.
Right. Yeah. On Proverbs, guys, he said that he managed to make his ChatGPT a Christian creationist, and that's not a good idea.
Yeah, that's so stupid.
Yeah, I've never done that.
I just basically make sure and instruct whatever AI I'm using to please provide sources and, to actual articles or papers
Right.
by qualified experts,
Yep. I'm trying to arrange a talk with Dan Pazzi from Proverbs guys, because he sounds like somebody I can talk to. And Dan, if you're listening, what I want to talk about is cats and dogs, and created cat kinds and created dog kinds. And I want to talk about evolution from that starting point, and then I want to explain to you why I accept evolution, and see if we can maybe have a pleasant conversation. So hopefully that will happen, maybe on Sunday. I don't know, maybe I'll be around on Sunday. Okay.
All right.
So we're done. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Scott.
You're very welcome. I'm glad that we had this chance to chat.
Yep. Goodbye, cruel world.